You're not getting your $50,000 back. I'm sorry. That's the way it's going to be. That's what we're going to talk about today here on the Gary DeMar Show. Talking with a man the other day in my subdivision, which is like many subdivisions in this county and all across the country, was foreclosed on while the builder was building it. There were 30 lots, only 10 homes were built, and they were foreclosed on, and some of us bought those at decently low prices, and the rest of the lots are sitting vacant. Like a lot of subdivisions throughout the country, they're just empty lots with the PVC stubs sticking up for utilities, and who knows when they will ever be finished, if ever. Well, the gentleman I was talking to actually bought his house at the top of the housing bubble, and he paid about $50,000 to $80,000 too much, depending on who values it. And I was discussing with him the other day, and he was talking about conditions in the subdivision, homeowners association rules, and all that kind of garbage. And he said, we got to keep things up around here because that's the only way housing values are ever going to come back in this subdivision, so that I'll get my $50,000 in equity back. And I had to tell him, I said, it's going to take a lot more than that. And what I didn't tell him is it's probably not going to get his $50,000 back because the housing market is not going to return to the top of that bubble as if that were normal. And a lot of people are sitting around waiting for this thing to return back to what it was, but you've got to remember what it was not normal. It was a bubble. Bubbles, by definition, are an exaggerated, inflated market which are destined to burst. And it's not going to come back, nor should it come back. Let's talk about those two issues. It's not going to come back anytime soon anyway, for at least two reasons. It is the shadow inventory of homes, and then of course the second possible wave of foreclosures would be the second reason. What is the shadow inventory? We've had millions of foreclosures in the past year or two now. They've lessened up a little bit, but that in part has a lot to do with the bank's reluctance to go through with the process. They don't want to be flooding the market, the real estate market, with more and more hundreds of thousands and millions of foreclosed homes for sale at basement prices, which is just going to drive the level of housing prices down across the board, which of course is exactly the opposite effect that everybody is hoping for. At least everybody who owns a home and who's looking to sell or at least keep their equity. People who are buying homes now want that effect to take place. Nevertheless, what is the shadow inventory? The shadow inventory is the number of homes on the bank's books or in the process of being on the bank's books as foreclosed upon. These homes have not made it into the market yet. They have not been reported as foreclosures, and therefore they're not reported in the statistics of foreclosures, and therefore they don't affect the pricing of homes. What's so big about this shadow inventory? It is larger than the number of homes that have already been foreclosed upon, by far. One chart shows that the number of homes that have been foreclosed upon, you're looking in 20, 25, maybe $30 billion in the past year or two. The shadow inventory of homes waiting to be foreclosed on or in very near danger of being foreclosed upon is in the neighborhood of 450 million. So you're looking at something, what, 20 times greater than what we've already experienced? This is in the pipeline. This is not something that may happen. This is something that we have to deal with somehow, some way. And let me submit to you that however we deal with it, it is not going to help your housing price. It is not going to bring your equity back. It is only going to have the opposite effect of flooding the market with cheap homes and therefore driving prices down. The other part of that is the second wave of foreclosures that may hit. What we've experienced, we've heard the term thrown around subprime, and this of course is lending that was given, loans for homes that were given to people who were of not a great credit score, shall we say, people who were really not deserving of getting a loan, and yet through different means and risky lending procedures, and of course the whole chain reaction of things that came after that, this was done. And in fact, it goes all the way back to the Carter and then the Clinton administrations and the Community Reinvestment Act that forced banks to make loans in low-income and poverty-stricken neighborhoods. And of course, those policies, the people who fought against it were bankers. They found one banker to testify in Congress for it, and he was a friend of the Clinton family. Anyway, that's a whole different story. So these rules were in place. Banks had to lend in some cases, and of course they did it on their own volition in some cases, ignoring the risk. What we haven't been told is the whole subprime category is only one of 2 or 3 categories of risky loans that are out there that have yet to reset, that have yet to experience the wave of foreclosures, and it's only a matter of time. Some people say that Alt-A mortgages will start to reset this year, and then of course also, and that's just kind of a step up from subprime, but it's still not what they call a Category A or Class A debt. It is risky debt, and if those begin to foreclose, you're going to have even greater problems heaped onto that shadow inventory. And then, of course, you have people with adjustable rate mortgages who are in good shape now because interest rates are very low. But if for whatever reason, however those loans are structured, if it's tied to the current interest rates or if it's part of the deal up front, a lot of people get some kind of a 5-year deal where they get a low interest rate, and then after that it kicks into a higher interest rate. When those loans begin to reset, which could be this year or next year or maybe another year out from that, those people will experience distress. And if they can't make their payments, they'll face foreclosure, and the whole process will have a third wave. So, and there are a lot of people tracking these things and a lot of people fearful of them. It just seems that the people in the mainstream media won't talk about it. They don't want to put more fear out there than they think is necessary. Well, they're going to have to deal with it sooner or later. So, as a matter of fact, there's very, very low likelihood. In fact, it's so low, you could tell the gentleman that I talked to the other day, you're not getting your $50,000 back. It's not going to happen, not anytime soon. Probably not, well, certainly not in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe not in the next 10, and maybe, you know, depending on how old he is, maybe not in his lifetime will we see prices that high again. And nor should we, which is my other point. The market's not coming back to that point. The bubble's not going to return back. That's not normal, nor should it be. I mean, this is what these people are asking for. Let me state it this way. What is a person asking for when he says, I want my home price and my, quote, equity built back up to where it was? That person is asking for there to be another bubble. Or there's a second way we could achieve those prices, and I'll talk about that in a second. That person is asking for us to return to a situation in which there is irrational exuberance. There is such a demand for housing, which is artificially created through artificial credit or very risky credit. That demand for housing drives the prices back up. But of course, that's an artificial situation. If you're not looking to speculate, which of course if you're relying on that situation as a speculator, it's immoral to begin with. But if, you know, unless you're going to sell, which this guy is not, he has a family, he lives by a school, he's happy where he's at. Why do you want that to be the case? Why would you want another bubble so that it would again pop, so that we would again go through the whole process of recession and layoffs and that we're still trying to get out of now and not making very good headway? That person is asking for there to be an immoral situation solely for the sake that he can have his equity back in his house. And of course, do what with it would be the question. So that scenario is all wrong, and the person who's anticipating that is confused. Secondly, real quick, the other scenario in which housing prices would return to that would be a situation in which you have inflation, rampant inflation to the point that prices arise 30, 40, 50, 60%, whatever. And of course, in that situation, well, you'll get your house equity back, but all other prices will be raised too. So that would be pointless. So the statement stands. You're not getting your $50,000 back. This is normal. We need to find, once we level out, this is normal. We don't want a bubble, and to ask for it is immoral. Thank you for joining me today on the Gary DeMar Show. We'll be back next time. Thanks.
For more related to today's topic, check out Protecting Your Wealth from Liberal Fallacies, featuring Joel McDurmon. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.